your cognitive skills and cognitive operation. Language, anything else? Anything anybody wants to ask? You
No,
listen me.
sir. Yes, sir. Actually, the recording has started. That's why it is an information that the recording started. We didn't
আচ্ছা
say
ঠিক আছে,
anything.
আচ্ছা
Yes, sir. Recording
না
started, sir. Ah,
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে করো,
recording started.
5 জন
Yeah.
ହେଲେଣି, let me continue.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Language is also important for our perception. Perception is one of the most important cognitive process, and language is a very basic requirement for our perception. Assigning meaning, assigning relationship, all those things are largely derived from our language structure. In a way, I want to say that language is the most important attribute, vehicle, system to help our cognitive processes develop and grow and to be useful. Now, coming to the next thing that I want to tell you about is structure of the language. About structure of the language, we have first part of the language structure is phonemes. Phonemes is the smallest unit of sound meaningfully produced to use language. Means every language has its selected and definite phonemes. You say English has its own phonemes, Hindi has its own phonemes, Odia has its own phonemes. Phonemes are the sound systems of the language, sound units of the language, smallest sound unit of a language. That is meaningfully, that can be meaningfully conveyed. Meaningful means you cannot just monosyllabic, monophonic, you cannot just get a total meaning of that. But that has some connotation about the about carrying the meaning to the person. So phonemes are the basic, fundamental, first aspect of the structure of the language, and then called morphemes. As I have told you, phonemes by itself is not sufficient to carry any meaning. Supposing ma is a phoneme, t is a phoneme, p is a phoneme, but when I say this, you are not able to take any meaning out of that. It's a sound. But when these phonemes combined to communicate a basic meaningful unit, and that is called morpheme. Means morphemes are the smallest meaningful unit of a language. Phonemes are the smallest sound unit of a language. And then syntax. Syntax means system that rules on how words can be meaningfully arranged from. Now you have morphemes. Morphemes are meaningful smallest unit, but morphemes do not convey the whole meaning, the related meaning. Supposing I say mother, you do not get the whole sense why I am saying the word mother, unless I say you something more than that about the mother. Therefore, syntax is the rule of the language, and those are helpful for creating a meaningful communication to anybody. That is, we have phonemes as the smallest unit of sound. We have morphemes as the smallest meaningful unit. Morphemes are a combination of phonemes, and syntax is the combination of morphemes where we get the meaning as it is required, or the wholeness of the meaning. Morphemes are meaningful, but they are not communicative. Total intention is not communicated by morpheme, but intention is communicated by the syntax. Now, this is all about the structure of the language. And next is about language acquisition. You know, when a child is born, he has not acquired the language. He is to grow up acquiring language at different stages. As the child is growing up, he shows the phenomenon of acquisition of language through his developmental processes. What are those processes? Stages of language development. One, cooing. Cooing, as you see during infancy, or then the early after some 2-3 months during birth, the child makes a sound, a continuous sound. Infant's oral expression that explores the production of vowel sounds. You will see that this child is making some kind of sound which is not anyway largely meaningful, but it is a sound. It is a beginning that the child is trying to inculcate language into his system. And those sounds are largely vowel related sounds. Vowel sounds the child produces, and which we call the cooing sound. When the child is playing, the child is producing some kind of sound, and that is the beginning of his language. And some psychologists also believe that earlier to cooing, there is also another stage of sound production towards the development of language, and that is crying. Crying is the beginning of language. And the child, as soon as the child is born, it starts crying to show that he or she has the inbuilt capacity to learn language. Crying, then cooing, and then babbling. After some time, after some months, 3-4 months, you will find that the child is not making the same sound as it was being done earlier. Earlier sounds were distinctly vowel sounds, but now the child is also using some other form of sounds which we can call the consonant, sounds of the consonant, as well as vowels. Now the child comes to know that a sound, language sound, can be produced not only by vowels but by using both consonants and vowels. Now the child will produce sounds which comprise both consonants and vowels, but not at meaningful. These babbling sounds are not not meaningful as the language communication, but it is also in some way it is meaningful to mother, because mother understands from the babbling sound the communication between the child and the mother. Largely during this stage, the mother understands the babbling sound. Therefore, in babbling time, the child, there is also some basic communication between the child and the mother. Although nobody else, other people, unrelated people cannot understand the meaning, but the mother can understand to some extent. And after that, sometime after that, there will be one word utterances. Baba, mama, tata, like that. One word utterances, and the child is now able to combine consonant, vowel, and combining them begins to convey some meaningful one word. That is the next stage of development, and we call it one word utterance stage. Crying, cooing, babbling, and then one word utterance stage. And then gradually the child comes to combine words, one word to two words. And then next stage is called two-word utterance stage or telegraphic phase. You know, nowadays telegram is not very common use, but you must be knowing that the people are writing messages telegraphically. D, T-H-E, they are writing as a D. D means T-H-E. It is in the place where you find you can get meaning. That is what is a telegram. And now, during two-word occurrences, the child can meaningfully express many things by just uttering two words. How can two words? Meow, meow means they have certain references about a cat, like that, whatever, like that. And then finally, the last phase is the basic adult sentence structure. From two word, then comes three word unstructured sentences, and in the process, finally, the child goes to the final phase of the language development, that is basic adult sentence structure. Now the child says full sentences to communicate his or her experiences, feelings, and all that. These are the stages of a language acquisition. Is it clear and audible? Nikki Sahu.
Yes, sir.
Now we have discussed about the stages of language acquisition. And then the next thing that we have to discuss about theories of language. This is another very important and a controversial issue in the literature of cognitive development. People, very great people in psychology, they say their own different opinion about the theories of language development. And one of the most important group of theorists among them is behaviorist. I have already told you one thing, that psychology is never ever all definite. You cannot say that this is only right and the other thing is wrong. In the natural sciences, you say the earth is moving around the sun. That is the only truth. But in behavioral sciences, and particularly in psychology, you just cannot say that this is the only truth. Because psychology is dealing with human beings. And human being, as you know, is a very complex system, even more complex than the universe. That is why psychology always shows you different perspectives of the same thing. The theorists, they say this is right, someone says this is right, but you just cannot say that someone is wrong and someone is right. They criticize each other's point of view like that. Similarly also, language development has its own theories. And one of the basic language development theory was proposed by the behaviorists. And their emphasis is on a reinforcement. Children imitate adults. How children learn language? What do the behaviorists say? And behaviorists is largely the leadership goes to Skinner, B.F. Skinner. Skinner is the pioneer and the leader of the team behaviorists. And how do they perceive the language development of children, human beings? They say that children imitate adults. How do we learn language? We try to imitate what the adult is saying. That is our innate quality, native quality to imitate people. That is a characteristics being endowed with the child. And when the child imitates and gives out a correct response, he or she is reinforced. The father says, yes, this is good. The mother says, appreciates. The mother smiles. Whatever kind of reinforcement it is. The child being provided with that reinforcement, reward, learns the correct thing. And when he or she is disapproved of his, supposing he or she is saying a word and it's wrongly spelled, it's wrongly pronounced, the mother says no, then the child gets like a punishment, and then he or she tries to change the pronunciation of the word. That is the way that children learn language and continue to learn language gradually by the process of reinforcement. And therefore, this approach of learning language is a mechanistic point of view. We imitate, we see others, when we get reinforcement or reward, we learn it, we acquire it. When we get punishment, we forget it, we change it. That is the kind of thing. Skinner, behaviorist. And then Chomsky, another very great contribution to understanding the development of human language development. Chomsky says that a human child is born with a mechanism, LAD, language acquisition device. आमे जन्म होला बेले आमको गोटे mechanism, you may consider it as a software, you may consider it as a hardware, whatever it is. you are being born with a kind of system that is facilitative to your language development. And he called it language acquisition device. And that is very typical of the human child. ପ୍ରତି ମଣିଷ ପିଲା ଜନ୍ମ ହେଲା ବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ନେଇକିରି ଆସିଛି so that he or she will utilize that system to learn that language. And he has also his arguments, he has also his proofs about how a human child. Madam, how are you here? Anyway. Now, Vicky madam. Now.
Yes, sir.
Now, one of my students from Ravenshaw University, she is there. She must not be. Anyway, I'm continuing. I'm not. Some sound is there. Do you able to?
The network is too slow.
Achha, okay. Now, next is I have told you about Chomsky. Is it clear? Chomsky.
Yes, sir.
Chomsky.
Yes, sir.
Chomsky.
Yes, sir.
Theory of grammar.
Most important contribution is language acquisition device, LAD. That
Yes.
a human child is born with a specific mechanism, a specific kind of system. You may call it software, you may call it hardware, whatever you may call it. And now the next is cognitive theory, the most popular theory of language development by Piaget, Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget has developed another aspect, and language is just one aspect of child's overall intellectual development. Piaget says that language development is not independent of the child's other developments. A child's language development is related to all other forms of cognitive development. That means it is a part of the system, and like other development. Some sound is there. Now,
Sir, kindly request all of them to mute themselves.
Acha. Now it's a request to all my students that some sound is there. Maybe you will not be able to hear me if that sound continues. You try to mute yourself so that you listen me, and whenever I will ask you some question, you again put your sound system on and talk to me. Let me continue saying things. Now, cognitive theory, which is being largely headed by Jean Piaget, language is just one aspect of child's overall intellectual development. He doesn't see language as a separate system in any child. He says that the child is not only developing language as a system, he is developing his whole cognitive aspect, and language is a contributory system to that cognitive development. That is what is cognitive theory of language development. And finally, another important theory by Brunner. Brunner theory is called the interaction theory, and the theory emphasizes that language development is a process of interaction between human child and his fellows all around him or her. Unless there is good deal of interaction, unless there is appropriate interaction among the people, language development will not be efficient. Interaction is the primary concern of language development. If the parents, if the mother does not talk to the child enough, the child will not grow up with a good language system. If the peers in the school do not interact with the child with much of language use, then language development will be hampered. Interaction is the main important and a basic requirement for language development. We saw in these theories, we saw there is no contradiction. Reinforcement is necessary. Unless you get something, you will not learn that. That is a very fundamental principle of life. Reinforcement is required. Some innate mechanism is there, which is only absolutely available to the human beings, not to other animals, and therefore human beings are able to learn so quickly and so better. And there is language is not independent of other cognitive development. Language is a part of the cognitive development, and the child's language development goes with other cognitive development. If other cognitive developments are weak, then language development will also be affected. And then interaction, social. All these things point to different aspects of language development by in terms of theory. That is what is theories of language development. Any question? Now you can ask me any question about these theories of language development, because this is an important part of your syllabus. You have to write an answer on this part. What are the different theories of language development? And there are also criticisms. There are also different things that you have to read. I will tell you the basic things. Anybody having any question?
Sir,
Now,
kindly repeat Jean Piaget's theory of language acquisition.
Jean
I
Piaget's
couldn't
theory.
get that.
Piaget theory about language development. Piaget is basically interested in the intellectual development of children. He has a very great contribution, a great theory of cognitive development. And in that I will tell you in the next part today. But basically about language development, he pointed out that language development is not an independent development of the human child. A human child, supposing someone wants to grow up only in language, it's not possible. Other development, supposing reasoning, mathematical skill, other kinds of things that go together with language development. Language development is just a kind of assorted growth with other kind of development. Cognitive, when we think of cognitive development, we have other kind of things also. There are developments which are non-verbal also. But language is not any independent. A child without having appropriate cognitive development in other fields cannot have cognitive development like that. That is what is there. Now, anything else? Now, next is all those things are discussed detail. Now comes the cognitive theory of language development, as you have asked, is about Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Piaget says that cognitive development is passes through 4 stages. It passes through 4 stages of development. 1, sensory motor. These are related to the language development also. Sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Now, the sensory motor period, which is approximately during the period from birth to 2 years, जन्मरू 2 वर्ष पर्यंत এই period of development को कहा जाए sensory motor development, जो the period during which there is language development, and alongside that there is also total cognitive development system. It is a package, not that only there will be language development. It is also a supportive system for cognitive development. And that in this stage, a child has a relatively little competence in representing the environment using images, languages, and symbols. Now the child is, during this stage, sensory motor, that is from 0 to 2 years, the child cannot express himself or herself by images, languages, or symbols. The child has not yet acquired those efficiencies to represent. Whenever an adult wants to communicate with something, he is using language, and he is saying the child cannot use the language. And therefore, during this stage, the child's way of communication is by using sensory motor behavior. The child communicates by crying. The child communicates by smiling. The child communicates by other forms of body behavior. Sensory motor. This is the way the child communicates, and this is the way the child gains his experience and formalizes his experience. If the child wants to attract the mother, what he or she is doing? He is doing some kind of sensory motor behavior. And that is what is the first stage. That is, according to Piaget, the first stage of development is sensory motor. And during this stage, the child learns to coordinate and use his sense and motor organs. Akhi, nako, kano, hato, godo, sabu ବ୍ୟବହାର କରିକି the child is learning enjoying the experiences. That is sensory motor period. And now the next is pre-operational period, 2 to 7 years. The most important development of this time is language. Now this is the time when the child from sensory motor comes to focus on the language. Now by this time he or she has some language acquisition, some language skill in order to express itself. But the language skill is not enough, not adequate to express his or her experiences completely, to communicate his or her experiences completely. Language use କରିବା ଆରମ୍ଭ କରେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ତାର language experience ଏତେ ଆସିନଥାଏ, language sufficiency ଏତେ ଆସିନଥାଏ ଯେ ସେ ତାକୁ totally express କରିପାରିବ. But the child tries his or her best to bring out language use into his experiences, and that is why it is called pre-operational, because it is a trying time, it is a testing time for the child to communicate himself through language. The child is not completely efficient, and therefore reluctantly, so to say, the child is using, and that is why we call it pre-operational. Before the war, before the actual operation. And that continues 2 to 7 years. And this is actually, in fact, a big period for the development of the child, not only for the cognitive development, but also for the language development. Because the child tries to use, and during every developmental psychologist or any developmental science, they say that this is the most vital period of life, 7 ବର୍ଷ. The first 7 years of life is much more important for any kind of development. हमको अनेक समय हमर स्टूडेंट माने पचारंती जे सर हमें टिके बाहर रहिछु फुलबानी रे रहिछु मु भाबुची 7-8 वर्ष हे गेले मो पिलांको लेकि मु भुवनेश्वर कटक दे भलो स्कूल ले पाठ पढे हमर एडवाइस हैला जहा करिवार अछि प्रथम 7 वर्ष रे पिला को जोगाओ, and that is the most important and vital period to experience life. Therefore stimulation, whatever is required, must be provided to the child before 7 years. Almost 7 years, first 7 years of life is largely important for future development. हमें बिलीव करूचु जे प्रथम 7 वर्ष रे जहा घटना घटितिबो जीवन सारा ताक दोई सुखई खाइबा अवस्था आसे. That is what is the importance of pre-operational period. You know what is pre-operational? आमे जदि गोटे वार कथा भाबिबु, प्री ऑपरेशन युद्ध हबा पूर्वरु आमे केते निजुक साजसजा करिछु, प्रिपेयर करिछु, सेटा इंपोर्टेंट. थरे युद्ध आरंभ होई गेले आ जीवन टाको जदि गोटे युद्ध बिली ग्रहण करिवो, थरे इफ यू once the war begins, our operation jaha preparation jaha is, that is important. That is what is pre-operational. Then 7 to 12 years, another very important period, and it is called concrete operational period. What is concrete operational? During this stage, it is called concrete. If I know that 5 into 2 is 10, I am taught, I have learned 5 into 2 is equal to 10. And someone will ask me, what is 2 into 5? I will not be able to tell that. Because my experiences are concrete, or my cognitive development are concrete to my relevant experiences. I cannot as flexibly change my experiences. Do you get my point? I hope you get my point. The experiences or the learning or the development, that is used as it is learned, as it happened, and as it is realized. There is not much of innovation, change, creativity in that. And that phase of we know that stage of life from 7 to 12 years, from up to class 5, 6. If we were to write one essay, we remember that and produce it exactly. That is the concrete operation. We cannot change ourselves to accommodate. That is a period of concrete operation. And concrete operation prepares or creates the foundation for the subsequent development. If you do not have strong concrete operation, you do not have strong, ମୁଁ ଯଦି 5 କୁ 2 ରେ ଗୁଣିଲେ 10 ହବ, ସେ କଥା ଠିକରେ ମନେ ରଖିନି, ଜାଣିଛ ଯୋଉ ଆମକୁ ପଣିକିଆ ଶିଖାଯାଏ। ସରି ଟିକେ ବର୍ଷା ଆସିଲା। And then comes formal operation. It starts raining heavily. Anyway, am I audible now? Jyoti.
Yes, sir,
Am
you're
I
audible. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Achha, anyway. Nikki, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Sir, I got a doubt. Sir, what is the role of
Now,
recentration and
let me tell you the formal operational period. Formal operational period. And now, this is the final goal in the development of a cognitive process. It is called formal operation because now whatever you have acquired across all these 3 periods of your development, you have to use them independently of other things. Means whatever you know, whatever you have learned, whatever you have acquired, will now only form the basis of your knowledge. And using that, you will be able to extend your knowledge on your own. You will be able to learn things more and more by just manipulating, by just organizing, by reorganizing your knowledge into different formats. And that is formal, and that continues all across the life. Whatever you have acquired, whatever you have, it's not that you do not learn things during formal operation and afterwards, but formal operation part is that you reuse, recreate, reinvest whatever you have learned already. That is the basis and fundamental. And you grow up exercising your knowledge to regain, reproduce knowledge. The basic, or in other words, I can say that up to the concrete operational period, you gather the basic fundamental requirements, input system largely. Largely you have acquired the input system for your subsequent development. And once you reach the formal operational period, you try to reuse, recreate by using those inputs in different ways. Formal operation पर्यंत आम जिनिस ग्रहण करने चेष्टा कर संग्रह करने चेष्टा कर तार यूज डिफरेंट. And with this I completed ERZ. And then next thing that I am to, this part is over, and next thing that I have to tell you about the functions of the language. because you are learning the language development, functions of the language. There are different kinds of specific functions that you carry out by using a language. One is called the speech act. You are able to convince others. You are able to impress others. You are able to do good in your interview. In many ways, you impact other people. And that is by using your language in a specific format. We call it the speech act. तमे केमिति कथा कहूच, कथा कही जानिले सुंदर, ए जो fact, that is what is called the speech act. And language, one of the important function of the language is speech act. You know, some people say and they are appreciated by what they speak. Some people say and they are not accepted or appreciated, they are avoided like that. किसी लोगों को तमें सुनिया को भल लगे, किसी लोगों को सुनिया को बोरिंग लगे, विरक्त लगे. जोतरे हम तो कहूँ that is the kind of thing, function of the language and speech act. जो जिनिस को हमें जानी चाहिए. And second is propositional propositional content. Now, speech act is a very simple, so to say. I don't say just it is simple, but it is one kind of act. But when a scientist is speaking, when someone is speaking, which requires language, logic, observation, derivation, some propositional concept, scientific teaching, scientific speaking, or speaking with some kind of creativeness. Those are also, supposing in those cases, a small mistake in the use of language is also some kind of error. Propositional content, that is a different kinds of language use. A science teacher using very selected but small language system. A history teacher is using a very elaborate language system. And if a science teacher teaches like a history teacher, then it will be boring. And if a history teacher teaches like a science teacher, physics teacher, it will also be boring. And that is called the propositional content. And that is being determined by the language. And then another important thing is thematic structure. Thematic structure means sometimes you say and use language in one very simple way, but it conveys a very deeper meaning. बेले बेले आमे गोटे कथा जहाँ कहू तार बहुत अंतर्निहित अर्थ एवं कम्युनिकेशन थाए. दैट इज थीमेटिक प्रेजेंटेशन. मु जोटा कहूची तार मीनिंग आउट मनकर गोटे शायर से तोड़े कहूची जो जिनिस से small telling a small thing, but it has a very deep inner meaning. When language is used that and it is being by artists, the kavita lekhuchi, that is a thematic. The short story lekhuchi, that is a thematic presentation of language. Language is not important. The experience lekhuchi nijaro, that is a thematic presentation. The language is not important. Important is the content, the thema being presented by the language. समस्ते कविता लिखि परिबेनी, समस्ते गप लिखि परिबेनी, जोटा कि तमे किछि गप देखिबो, you appreciate it not because of the language, because the language communicate an inner meaning. So these are the three important functions of the language. One, speech act. Second one is propositional content, जोटा कि scientific and third one is artistic content. These are the kinds of things. Then language structure जिनस कही फोनिम्स एंड मॉर्फिम्स ଆଗରୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ମୁଁ କହୁଛି ହାୟର ଲେଭେଲ ଅଫ ଲିଙ୍ଗୁଇଷ୍ଟିକ ଆନାଲିସିସ୍ ଆମେ phonemes and morphemes are very basic fundamental aspects of the language structure, but beyond that ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆହୁରି language କୁ analysis କରିବୁ ତାର ଆହୁରି କେତେ ଗୁଡେ levels ଅଛି. There are some other levels of language contents. Those are lexical contents of the language, those are syntactic content of the language, those are semantic or meaning content of the language. Lexical content. When you are communicating a language, what are the kinds of words that you are using? Which word is more appropriate? If you find that you can have a better substitute word, you are improving lexically. Lexical improvement means you are using a word, you feel that this word is not sufficient, you want to choose a better word for this expression, then you find the thesaurus to find the equivalent words for that, synonym words for that, and then you choose a better word. Means you are improving lexically. Lexical content means your word choice. Your choice, word choice and placement of the choice only. What better choice of words you do have for a particular expression. Sometimes you will find that two people are expressing the same thing, but someone's expression is more powerful, is more meaningful, is more conveying than other one. ଏକା କଥା ଦି ଜଣ କହୁଛନ୍ତି, ଜଣଙ୍କ କଥା ବଢିଆ ଲାଗୁଛି, ଭଲ ବୁଝି ହଉଛି, ଆଉ ଜଣଙ୍କ କଥା ବୁଝି ହଉନି, ସମାନ କଥା କିନ୍ତୁ କହୁଛନ୍ତି, because there is lexical difference. Someone is having better lexical approach than other one. That is what is lexical content. And then syntactic content of the language, the grammar, what should come where, the use of what's in its appropriate place. Same sentence can be written in many different ways, but one of them will be more powerful expression than the other, because depending on its syntactic content, how they are reported and what is their placement as it is. And then finally, semantic content. You are saying you have good lexical content, you have good syntactic content, but even then your expression is not powerful. Your expression is not that meaningfully attractive, and that part is called the semantic content or meaningfulness. If you make all these three things good, then you will have a better language expression or control. Semantic, grammar ठीक रहना दरकार है, syntactic अनुसार the proper use of words and language होना दरकार है, and finally they must convey the meaning appropriately. With this part of the thing is covered. Now, the next important thing is multilingualism, bilingualism, I should rather say, and cognition. What is usually in the present scenario, during the present time, we are supposed, rather we have, by the exigencies of the life and environment, we are supposed to be multilingual. No more a single language is our life's process and goal. If we remember, we didn't know any other language even if we were 12 years old. षष्ठ श्रेणी पढ़ा पर्यंत आम सेकेंड लैंग्वेज किसी जान नु, ओनली ओडिया ओडिया एंड ओडिया, नथिंग एल्स. षष्ठ श्रेणी बेलू ABCD पढ़िक इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज जान. तेणु that is what is, but nowadays whatever child or person you meet, wherever in any part of the world, you will find that at least he or she is multilingual, knowing many more languages. And in Indian context, particularly in English, Hindi, and mother tongue, is a very common thing with everybody. And what is that? Very, this has become a hot topic since long time. What is the bilingualism and cognition, multilingualism and cognition, how they are related? Is multilingualism, bilingualism advantageous for cognitive development, or they are disadvantageous? How do researchers say about bilingualism and multilingualism? Now, in fact, in the literature, there is no concrete suggestion or concrete idea or one idea that bilingualism, let us suppose bilingualism is something better than multilingualism. Many researchers have shown that bilingualism is actually something good, but but under certain conditions of expression and learning. As it is, bilingualism is not all a good phenomenon. And in that reference, they have classified bilingualism as additive bilingualism, subtractive bilingualism, compound bilingualism, coordinate bilingualism. Now, additive bilingualism is a fact of bilingualism. Just I am giving you some simple idea. When the two languages being learned by a child is complementary to each other. One language is friendly to the other language. Do you get my point? But subtractive bilingualism is a form of bilingualism which is a condition in which one language interferes the efficiency of the other language. Now the question is, if these are two kinds of language, additive and subtractive bilingualism, then there must be conditions when the child will be able to develop additive bilingualism, and there must be conditions when the child will develop subtractive bilingualism. There are many such conditions, but for example, if someone is to be bilingual, it should be, he or she should be bilingual as soon as possible. Means the earlier you learn to be bilingual, the better it will be an additive bilingualism. आम भाया जदि 12 वर्ष बेलू जाइए सेकेंड लैंग्वेज आरंभ हम, naturally it will be a kind of subtractive bilingualism. Because the developmental psychologists, they pointed out that once one language has taken off a stand, one language has been established completely or thoroughly, if you begin to learn another language, the second language will have a press down effect. The second language will be a subtractive language. And therefore, early learning of both languages is a condition, is a necessary condition to become bilingualism, to become an additive bilingualism. Similarly, other conditions are there. Prestige of the language, second language, first language. Supposing your mother tongue is Oriya and you are learning English as a second language. And now you think of two children, one remaining in village and other remaining in Bhubaneswar. In Bhubaneswar, the child learns that English language is socially respected, and that is in the family. He or she learns that English language is a respected language, and therefore that social respect for the second language will help him or her to be more proud of learning the second language. While in the village, the child learns second language only in school, and he or she doesn't have any scope to use that language anywhere because that is not socially respected, socially approved. Therefore, in these two conditions, one may develop additive language for bilingualism and other may develop subtractive bilingualism. Mother's language, because the child has the largest source of learning language, mother. If mother is not bilingual, the child will have a sense of rejectedness about the second language. There are research have shown that there are many such conditions which influence the bilingualism. But the next thing is multilingualism. Now, the question is no more bilingualism, because anybody nowadays with the exigencies of the conditions of life need to be multilingual. You will find that many people don't know at least 3 languages because of their basic requirement. English language, Hindi is nowadays a very important language for everybody because cinema and entertainment, everything goes by that language. Therefore, but the issues about bilingualism and multilingualism are similar, but we are, because in India we have so many languages, and now due to the modern requirements, we are almost one nation and one system. Therefore, multilingualism is a bigger issue in Indian context. And how to handle multilingualism. There is one part in multilingualism in India, and then some aspect you know about the school, the third language policy, or all those things you'll have to know. Multilingualism and thinking. Something has been discussed, and you know that whether you have a additive system of languages, same thing can be applied to multilingualism. One, language 2, language 3, they are facilitated to each other. They are going together with each other. They have a common program with each other. And other side, all these languages, they have different forms of operation. They have independent operations. Then one is advantageous, the other one is disadvantageous. These kinds of things suggest that language, there are a lot of things being discussed, second language acquisition, importance of second language, those kind of things, natural mechanism and single dual system hypothesis and all that. With this, I completed the multilingualism issue. And in Indian context, you will have to read all those things. And then language and speech disorders. It refers to some part of the people who have some kind of disorders with respect to language system. Language disorders, aphasia, you can study, there is nothing very difficult. You can learn about what is aphasia, how aphasia happens, what are the symptoms, how they affect the learning disabilities, autism. These are some kinds of disorders being explained which relate to the language. All are not only language related disorders. They are also language, some language behavior symptoms are there, but they are not only language. Supposing Alzheimer's is not only language disorder, language impairment, phonology, dyspraxia, all those things you can read and learn without any support, I think. Without any, you don't require to get any help of that. With this kind of system, this kind of explanation, I completed this third unit, this book, and now it is to you, Manjula. Do you have anything to ask me? Manjula Mohanty. Manjula, do you listen to me?
No, sir, nothing to ask.
Do you have anything to ask me, Manjula?
No, sir, nothing.
About this language that I have explained, you know, it's only counseling class. I have to explain in summary. I cannot go details about everything. It is actually required that you should have to be prepared first and then ask me questions about it. But anyway,
Right.
I have almost covered all the important issues relating to language development.
Right,
And
sir.
then Nikki Sau, do you want any clarification?
Good
No.
morning, sir.
Anybody else? Those who are listening to me, anybody else?
Sir, am I audible?
Sumitra Dawai.
Hello.
No question, no clarification. Then I think I have to close. Thank you all for
Okay.
accommodating, listening to me in this class.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
And let me close if you don't have anything to share with me.
Hello, sir. Thank you, sir, for presentation. Hello.
Anybody, anything to share with me?